Hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. This is going to be my first video on SolidWorks tutorials. My name's Scott. I'm a small business owner in Dayton, Ohio. I do SolidWorks contract design work, and I just wanted to kind of go through my design process and the way I think of designing, the way I build things. It's going to be very off-the-cuff type of conversation, well, one-sided conversation, and I have my cat here with me, ready to design. She's a lap cat. Her name is Echo. So we're going to jump right into it. Today we're going to be designing an ant feeder. So basically I am part of a Facebook group where they kind of share ant farm ideas. This isn't going to be all about ants, but that's all I'm doing is ant tutorials. So let's jump into it. This is going to be an ant feeder. If you want to scroll to the end, or I'll put a little snippet of what we're going to be building at the beginning when we're finished building it. So we're going to go File, New, and if you've never used SolidWorks, basically SolidWorks has three components that you can choose from when you start a design. So you can make a part, and basically think of a part as any individual item that is not in an assembly, which is the next item you can choose. So assembly is multiple parts put together, and you can kind of see like this Tetris piece showing you two parts put together. So today we're going to start with the parts. Drawings are more for communicating to a manufacturer or somebody that needs to see the print and understand what you're trying to create in 2D, because you're going to have to give it to them on a piece of paper on the shop floor to manufacture or to send off for quote. A lot of people will take part files from you and look at them for quoting, but for today's tutorial we're going to stick with just designing parts. So you make a new part. I'm running on 2014 still. We're upgrading to, I think it's 2018, hopefully here in the next few months, so I'll be on a newer version. But honestly, a lot of the features are still in here. It's just more of the newer stuff definitely has newer shortcuts, like they have threading, automatic threading tools, which today you're going to see it's a little tedious doing it manually. Whereas if you Google a tutorial on SolidWorks threading, it's basically one click, where ours is going to be a few more clicks. But understanding the thought process behind it all is going to help you see how to do it, and also make it a lot easier in the future when you run into issues with the threading tool and customizing it. And you might come to a scenario where you need to be able to do something special that the threading tool can't handle. So we're going to start off by basically making a sketch plane. We're going to choose a sketch plane, sorry, and we're going to choose a sketch. So I know the base is going to be a cylinder, and when you click a sketch tool, it's going to ask you what plane you want to start sketching on. This isn't so much relevant because you can always change the plane, or you can always rotate your part based on how you need it to assemble to the next part. So I usually just always start on the top plane. And now we're in the sketch mode, so you can just sketch out whatever you want. And I'm going to start with a cylinder. So I'm going to click that. And now I have my sketch. I'm going to extrude that sketch. So the basic principles of SolidWorks is you're working in 2D, but then you're stretching it like into a 3D plane. So I'm going to hit extrude, and I'm in millimeters, so we're going to say like 25.4 millimeters, which is an inch. And you can see it's giant. I'm so bad at SolidWorks. I messed up. So we're going to go back and edit this sketch because I didn't define it. If you right click on it, you can hit edit sketch, and you can see the sketch is blue. That means it's undefined, which means you can just move it around like crazy. It has no definition in space, what size it is, where it is. So you can tell if you click on a point, it's going to say this, which is coincidental, meaning that it's locked to that center point. So if I delete that, I can move the circle around. But I actually want it to be on that point, so I want to make that coincide with that point. And then I'm going to do dimension. So I have a keyboard shortcut set to D for dimension, but you can also find dimension up here in the Smart Dimension tools. You can do drop down if you want a special dimension. I just use smart usually. It gets me what I want. Click on the circle, and I'm gonna say probably about 2 inches. So you can do math in these drop down boxes too. So you can do like 25.4 times 2. It'll give you a 50.8 there. So I'm going to exit the sketch again here, and it's going to remember my extrusion. But I can always go back over here and right click on it and hit edit feature and type in what I need if I need to modify that. You can also double click on it and double click on the dimension you want to modify. If I want that to be, say, 30, hit enter, hit Control Q to rebuild it. There's also a rebuild button somewhere right here. This is the rebuild button. I use a lot of shortcut keyboard commands because I know what I do a lot, so I'm rebuilding often, and I know Control Q is the rebuild. The other thing that's handy too is like if I want to look at this straight on from this plane, I can click on this surface and come down to my views, and this is the normal to. And you can also see in the parentheses Control 8 shortcut gets you the same result, but I'm just going to click that and it brings me to that plane. You can also hit Control up and down arrows to move your item around. You can hold Shift and hit up and down to spin your item in space. These are really helpful when you're trying to quickly flip through the surfaces where you're trying to design on, and you'll see that as I go on. I'm going to kind of flip through items and rotate them in space fairly quickly. The faster I can work, the faster the product gets done. And that's my main thing, is you want to be as quick as possible and as efficient as possible, doing it correctly, labeling things right, not just kind of leaving things undefined. But you definitely have a time versus perfection balance in SolidWorks, or at least I do. A lot of times I have other people looking at my work or working on my 3D files, so I don't want to leave things all crazy. Here in the design tree, when something's wrong, you'll see like a red exclamation point or a yellow triangle. It's kind of like an error saying something's wrong with your design. And when you open up other people's designs, that is like the worst thing to see, and it's very frustrating. So you can label this too if you'd like. You can double click on this, or one click, slow, and then another. It's like click, click, and then that brings that up. You can also click it and hit F2 for rename. So I could call this, main body extrusion, extrude. That's just notes for me later as I build my design tree. I can quickly see, oh, that's the main body, or that's this or that. So the next step in this, what I want to do is I'm going to extrude another circle on this face. So I pick the face. Let me go a little slower real quick. So I pick the face I want to work on, and I'm just going to hit extrude. Another shortcut for me is S, and it brings up my sketch tools. I'm going to use a circle, which is set to snap to the center. You can also use a perimeter circle. There's just different features you can use based on what you need. This circle usually does it, and it's going to snap to the middle. I'm going to drag it out here. I'm going to dimension it off of this circle, and I'm going to say 15 millimeters. And I'm going to extrude that, say 10 millimeters. There you go. Now the next thing I need to do is cut a hole into this for my threads, because basically this ends up being a threaded hole here with a bottle that you put on the top, and then it lets water down into these little troughs that we're going to make, and it feeds the ants. So same thing, I'm going to click the face, I'm going to hit S is a shortcut for my tools again. I'm not in a sketch, so it's going to give me what features I want to use. I want to use the Extruded Cut. Now it's in cut mode because it made over here a sketch, and you're in a sketch mode. If you look over here, it says exit sketch or discard. We're not going to discard it. We're going to hit cancel. We're going to stay in the sketch. We're going to hit S for our sketch tools. Going to hit this circle again. Sorry, my cat is trying to get involved in this. We're going to hit the circle. We're going to draw a circle. And we're going to dimension that circle based on, I downloaded the specifications for soda bottles. And here's that. I just Googled soda bottle thread. Somebody did kind of like a forum post about this. So I grabbed that from there. And I'm basically going to look at these dimensions here because I'm going to need to make the opposite of this thread. So basically I want this to be my profile, but on the other side, so when this bottle comes in and threads in, it's going to use this shape and this spacing to tighten the bottle into my 3D printed item. So I need to know the basic diameter width of that bottle, and it's saying that it's going to be 25.07 max. So I'm going to design to that, so I need a hole that size. So I'm going to come back to here, I'm going to hit D again for dimension, click on the sketch and put 25.07, type it in, hit enter. It's going to resize it to that. And I'm also going to extrude it now. So if I hit exit sketch, it remembered that I said extruded cut. So I did exit sketch. No, it didn't remember. Okay, this is a good example of when I'm going to have to go in here and manually click it. So if I click it without highlighting the sketch, it's going to say please select a plane, a surface, or an existing sketch you want to use. So I'm going to use this existing sketch that I already drew. And I'm going to extrude, which is basically cutting material away. You have different options here for blind, through all both, up to next, up to vertex. You know, whatever option you need. So through all would just cut it all the way through, and play around with some of these because it'll help you understand what they do. You can kind of see the demonstration here when you highlight it. So I hit through all, blind. There we go. Somehow I got a second direction because I did through all both, so it wants to go up and down. I'm going to turn that off because I only want to go through one direction. This flips the direction I'm extruded cutting in, and on this example I'm going to use offset from surface. I'm going to click the surface back here, and I basically want to leave myself about 5 millimeters. And you can kind of see where it's going to end up. So I'm going to leave myself 5 millimeters. I'm going to hit the check mark. It's going to do the extrusion. And that's where we're going to put our thread. But before we put our thread, we're going to put our little troughs in. So I'm going to click the surface I'm going to extrude on. I'm going to use the extruded cut again. And this time I'm going to go normal 2 so I can see nicely what surface I'm working on. I hit S because I'm in sketch. It brings up my shortcuts. I'm going to use the rectangular center. And you can kind of see it snaps to certain markings on the field. So like if the center, like when I go there, or if I highlight this, it's going to give me the center of the circle. You can see it's there. So I'm going to come over here and basically just cut myself. I'm not going to use that square. I'm just going to use the regular square. So if I hit this, I'm just going to go corner to corner. And basically I want to align this to the center of this. So if I right click on this guy, hit midpoint, hold control, click the center, it brings up these relationship tools. So I can say it's horizontal, vertical, coincidental. This gives you some other options for things we'll get into later, but we're going to make it horizontal, which basically locks that center point to that. And then we're going to start dimensioning this based on what we need. So I know I want this trough to come out fairly close to there. And in the center here, we're basically going to end up cutting this further down. And I'll show you how that's going to go here in a second. So really, I don't care where it ends up here, as long as it's somewhere in this cutout circle. So what I'm going to do is I'll just have it snap to this guy. So I can click on the center, click on that, hold control at the same time, and then hit make coincidental. I'm going to tell it a dimension of 37. That gets me where I need to be here. And I'm going to say a width of about 10 millimeters. Sounds good. Now what I do is I do an extrusion, and I want it to go up to this face here, which is the bottom of that cutout. So I'm going to click that surface, I'm going to hit enter, and it's basically going to cut that out to that surface. Now I want more of these than just one. So what we're going to do is, it's called a circular pattern, and up here are our pattern tools. So you can linear pattern things, so like in a straight line or like a grid. You can circular pattern things, which is around a axis. You can mirror things, which is around a plane. And then it gives you some other things you can mess around with. I mainly use these three things most of all. So today we're going to use circular pattern. When I click that, and I'm not going to have anything highlighted yet, I want to choose that circular pattern. It's going to tell me what, or ask me what axis I want to rotate about. So I need to go into the views and turn on temporary axes, because I need to rotate about that axis right there, which is the center of the part. And I'm gonna say I'll put 5 of these in. Features to pattern, so I want it to pattern this feature. I can click the feature, or I can go to my design tree and just say that feature. So it's going to circular pattern that. You can skip bodies, so if you only want to do, every other one, it'll allow you to skip those, or instances to skip, sorry. It'll let you skip certain instances. You can also change the angle here, so if you want to do, now I got all screwed up. This is what happens. See, this is like real life SolidWorks. Things just go nuts sometimes. And you're like, I didn't click anything wrong. So I'm going to delete that out, click it again. No, I don't want that. I'm going to come over here, click that. I don't know what happened. That happens sometimes. Full preview. Just different options. Play around with this stuff. I mean, that's how you learn from your mistakes. Pretty much anything you can control Z to undo when you make real mistakes. But that's pretty much what we want right there. 5 of those. Hit the checkbox. It's going to circular pattern those. Boom. Next step, we are going to put the threads on. And this is probably one of the most complicated parts of this tutorial. So with threads are in a helical pattern basically. So they follow a helix shape. If you look at a thread, that's what a thread is. Basically, as you rotate, it's going to keep going up and up on the circle. So the first thing we need to do is define that circle. So I'm going to pick this surface. I'm going to hit my S. I'm not going to do an extrusion or anything here. I actually want to just go straight to my sketch tools and choose a circle. So I pick that circle. I pick this surface. So before we move on, I just want to show you this again. So before I click this and then I click this, now it knows I want to sketch on that surface. So it's ready. You can see my little sketch tool, the little pencil with a circle on it. If I don't click a surface and I just click this circle, it's going to ask me basically, hold on, exit sketch. It's going to ask me, so I click a circle, it says select a plane or an existing sketch. So I could come down here and select a sketch here or one of these other sketches, and it would resume that sketch and I could continue to edit. Or I can just pick a plane, like for instance, I want to sketch on this top surface. Click that plane. Now I'm going to take my sketch tool, draw a circle on that circle, hit the little checkbox, and I'm going to exit the sketch. Because now we're done with that sketch for the time being. We need to add a helix to it. So the helix is in curves, helix, and spiral. And real quick before I go on here, your layout might be different and you might not have all the buttons I have here. If you right click on here, you can turn on certain features and functions. Like if I turn on dim expert, office products, evaluate, I can change what toolbars I have accessible up here. And if you're not using a lot of these things, like evaluate's good because you can use the measuring tool, but I have, when I hit R, it brings up the measuring tool. Or if you hit mass properties, if you want to know how much it weighs, it brings up this little data chart based on what properties you selected over here. I don't have any mass or material set up, so I won't get the proper mass readout, but you can set all that up if you need it. So again, you can turn off these things. Yours might look a little different. You might have smaller buttons, so if you click on that, you see the smaller buttons. I prefer the larger buttons because they let me cheat a little bit and it tells me what it does. So maybe for the very advanced user, again, I've been using this for probably 10 years and I still like to look at these buttons. So the next step is adding the helix. So we're going to go into curves, helix. It's going to say select a plane or a sketch feature that contains a single circle. Well, that's what we have right here. I'm going to come down to this sketch. You can also click it or you can pick it out of the design tree over here. And I'm going to flip it downwards. Now we're going to go back to our chart here and look at the pitch. So the pitch seems to be 2.7 from valley to valley. I'm trying to see if they give a peak to peak call out. I do not see it, but we'll go with this 2.7 millimeters. So I'm going to say 2.7 millimeters is the pitch. Type it in, and I'll give it like 4 rotations. And start angle basically just rotates where it starts. This is only critical if you're doing something that is relevant to, you know, if you need it to align this feature where the thread starts, so once it twists close, it locks in a certain position. But you really don't need that for this. One other thing I'm going to modify too really quick is I want my thread to start further down. I don't want it to start right at the top. So I don't believe there is an option to do it here. So what I need to do is first I'll put the helix in. All right. But now if I go back to this sketch is on a certain plane, which is this surface. I need to move that surface down. This is going to get a little confusing, and I don't expect you to follow everything right here, but I'm going to actually roll back. This little hand lets me kind of roll back in time, and I'm going to hide, hold on, let me, yeah. I need this sketch. So I rolled back in time and I got the sketch before I did the helix. And actually before I do that sketch, I want to roll back one more and I want to come here and create a new plane. So that's a reference geometry. So I can click down on this and hit plane, or I actually have a shortcut command, Control P, creates a new plane. And I want to create that plane 2 millimeters from this face. And you can see it's kind of out in space here. That's not where I want it. I want to flip that. I want to actually on that plane. And I'm going to hit the check mark. And it's a distance from that plane. I can make it perpendicular to that plane. I can make it parallel to that plane. I can make it concentric. Not concentric, coincide. But we want distance. So there's the distance. You can also use a second reference. So if I want to click that and maybe that, hold on, not that. I want to click this point here. I could do an angle based on this. It's not working. See, these errors come up because you're doing something wrong. So actually you'd want it, you know, the edge of this, the plane of that, it's at a 90. I could put it at a 45 based on this little edge down there. Excuse me. But I don't want that, so I'm going to hit Edit Feature. So over here, as you have the features already done, you can click this, right-click on it, Edit Feature, and I'm going to come back to this face, and I'm just going to say a distance, delete this reference. I'm going to say a distance of 2 millimeters. Flip it to go downward, hit OK. I'm going to drag it down so that sketch shows up, and I'm going to edit the sketch plane. So this is the plane that the sketch is on. So I'm going to click that. Right click and then edit with left click. I don't think you can see my mouse clicks, so I'm either right clicking or left clicking, so good luck. Now I'm right clicking on this, so it's going to ask me what face or what plane I want to use. I'm going to say I'm going to use this plane. You can pick it here, or you can come down to your design tree, click it there, shows up there, hit the check. Now you're offset 2 millimeters. You drag this back down, and now your thread starts on that position of 2 millimeters. Okay, next thing, a little more challenging too, not too bad, a little confusing. I want to pick the point here. I want to hold Control and click the helix, and I want to come up here to references, and I'm going to do a plane there, which is basically going to make it perpendicular to the helix spiral, and it's going to also be, oh wait, cat mode, sorry. It's going to be perpendicular to there, and it's also going to pierce right at that point where it's connected. So I'm going to hit plane, and you can see right here it's coincidental with that point, and it's perpendicular to that edge line. I'm going to hit the check mark. Basically what we're doing here is we're going to take a pattern. So I'm flipping it around. I'm kind of seeing where I am in space. Okay, I'm at the beginning of that. So I'm going to start right here. So we're going to take the thread pattern. Oh, you know what though? It should be okay. I think what I want to do, because it's at a slight angle, I'm going to delete that plane. I'm going to select that point. I'm going to select that plane, hit Control P, and I want to do it at 40. I want to do it at, all right. This is the fun parts of SolidWorks. I think it'll work if I do it on the plane. What I'm worried about is it's at a slight angle. I've done this before and I can't remember if that was an issue. I don't believe it was. In this scenario, it shouldn't matter as much, but we'll try it out and see what happens. So I'm going to make that plane again that I deleted. I'm just going to see if any of these options give me what I want. What made me a little worried was when I hit that plane and went normal to, I'm actually, you can see I'm at a tilt a little bit, and that's because that helix is coming up at a slight angle, which would make sense. I'm just trying to think how I could straighten that out pretty easily. What I can do is, yeah, let me delete this for a second. I can look at my planes that I started with and see where I'm at in space, and I think if I go back to the helix and I change the starting angle to 360, it should intersect exactly where my original planes are, and that looks like it does. So right now I have a plane basically intersecting. These are just the starting planes. I'm going to use these, but you can use the method I said earlier. It should work okay. I can't promise you anything. I'm going to hide this plane. If I right click here, I'm going to hide it so it's not in my view. I'm going to choose this right plane, which is that plane right there, and I'm going to sketch. So I can click sketch tools up here. I'm going to actually sketch a spline curve. It's going to ask me what surface or plane. I'm going to pick the right plane, and I'm just going to draw what appears to be a thread. I'm just using sketch tools. Kind of locking some of these things in. This I actually want to be more straight. So the spline's a goofy tool. So with a spline you can do all kinds of crazy things. Sometimes softwares like laser cutting softwares don't like splines. So you got to be careful when you bring splines into different softwares. And what I'm probably going to do is delete this real quick. I'm probably just going to use a line and make it curve basically like this. So if I click that first line and then I kind of hover over this for a second, it's going to create an arc. And with this, I'm just going to manually kind of draw that shape. And the reason I'm doing this is to avoid any issues with that spline, especially since I'm going to circular pattern this. So I'm going to mirror this. So I'm going to make a construction line here, highlight all the things I want, and I have a shortcut Y for mirror. And somewhere up here too, there is a mirror right here, mirror entities. So if you click that, it's basically going to mirror your component. I'm going to hop back over into that PDF and get the pitch was 2.07. The height of these guys looks like it's from, so it's 25.07. So let me open up the calculator. So we're going to go 25.07 minus the maximum is 27.4. So it's 2.33 divided by 2 because you have one of these on each side. And I know I'm in the negative, it's fine. So 1.16 millimeters tall. So if I come back over here, I'm going to say the height of this is 1.16. And then I'm going to drop back over to here, and it looks like the boom boom. Where is? So it doesn't really give the top tooth height, so we're gonna visually try to match this. So kinda. So I'm gonna just come in here and grab it, and just kinda get it close. Again, this isn't gonna be like critical in this scenario. And the newer SolidWorks, all you have to do is click the top circle and tell it the thread you want, and it already has it in there, and you're done. So I'm just kind of teaching you the hard way, because the next step we're going to use is the extruded loft. I think that's what it's called, or swept loft, swept boss. Yeah, lofts or something else. Swept boss around this perimeter. So I'm going to take this, and I'm actually going to close it off. And I'm not going to fully define all this right now because I just need to see if it works. So what we're going to exit the sketch. So we have a sketch here. I'm going to pick the swept boss. We're going to pick the sketch we did. So this is the profile we want to sweep. And then we're going to pick the path we're going to sweep on. So it'll be this. So we click that, and then we hit the checkbox. Boom. And we have threads. They look beautiful. I think they'll be fine. We can also come in here, and actually last time I did this, I gave myself a little flat top head at the top of this because I wanted to, let me edit that sketch. So I can come in here and edit the sketch. Actually want to take this. I'm going to break this. I'm trying to think the easiest way to do this. If I want to get a... I think I can do this without breaking this sketch. I basically want to slope this to make it nicer. So I'm going to use the chamfer and see if I can make this... No, it's not going to let me do that on that surface. I'm going to have to pick. Might get a little crazy. No, it doesn't like that. So really what I needed to do was give myself a flat top. I can come in here and cut this surface if I want to get rid of that and kind of give myself like a nice lead-in slope. There's multiple ways of doing that. Right now, I'm going to keep on going and show you how to kind of make this look a little more attractive. For instance, some tools that are really interesting are the fillet or fillet. We call it fillet, or the chamfer. So chamfer is going to give you like this. No, let me delete that face. So chamfer is going to give you this nice looking, you know, like nice corner, rounded corners, kind of squared corners, and you can get some cool results with that. The fillet is more like it gives you, so it doesn't like that. We have to put less of a radius in there. It gives you like that nice rounded look. This is fun for like 3D printing because a 3D printer can get some of these shapes really good. And and that's pretty much it. One thing, I have one of these I printed, which is right here. Ta-da! This isn't the exact one I designed here. Actually, the one I designed was feeder. Oh, I moved it somewhere. Okay. I actually have one of these right here. This is not the same one I designed today. I wanted to step you through it and show you. One thing I noticed was I didn't make these holes down here low enough to this point, or I'm sorry, this point out here, so the water was kind of dripping out. So what I would want to do next time around, or I could do it right now and show you, I want to get onto this surface under here and extend it out a little further so it's deeper than this point here. And to do that, you can do multiple things. I'm probably just gonna use the, I can cross section this if I want, and then I can pick this surface, and I'm gonna tell it I want to do a sketch on this surface. So that surface is picked. I can get out of my cross section. So I'm still on that surface. And I'm going to basically draw a circle to the outer circle. I'm going to draw a circle to that inner circle. I'm just going to do an extrude and tell it to go down maybe like 2 millimeters, maybe 3 millimeters, maybe 3.5. Just give myself a really small hole down there so that liquid won't, you know, come over this edge or have enough force to go over the edge, and because it kept leaking, like it would not stop leaking. Bad design. So this is kind of iteration 2 that I'm going to try out, and that is the ant feeder. This will be available on Thingiverse, so I'll link that in the description. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please subscribe. There'll be more videos like this. Hopefully you learned something along the way. I'm not the best. Well, I'm not the best. But I'm going to design a lot of things that I personally need in my life. I don't need this, but there's other people out there that have asked about this item. So I'm definitely going to keep designing things that people are requesting. And hopefully you guys check it out. You download it, print it. I'm going to come in here and tweak a few things. You know, this is a lot of extra wasted space. So I'm going to come in here, for instance, and make this maybe 35, which is going to give me errors because there's items linked to this. So I'm going to have to go through here and clean it up a bit. But I definitely want to make this usable for you guys. Yep, it's because of that dimension. So I'm going to boost that by maybe like 25. So anyway, I'm going to play around with this. You guys check it out, my finished product. I'll put it at the beginning of the video, maybe. Again, I'm still learning. You guys comment. Tell me what you want. Tell me what you want me to design. I can design a lot of cool things. I'll put them up on Thingiverse for you when I'm done. Take pictures of things. Challenge me a bit. I would love to hear from you. Thank you very much.